Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the opening race of the Sim Racing Hub International GT3 Season 4. It's round one here from Laguna Seca, California, USA. The SRHI Autumn Series was due to kick off 2 weeks ago with the GT3s, but an unfortunate and well-timed server problem means that the championship starts tonight. I'm Tim Fulbright, your lead commentator, back to guide you through the action on screen, and I'm delighted to be joined again by my good friend Steve Proudy. Good evening, Steve. How are you doing? And welcome back to what promises to be another exciting season of GT3 racing.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I mean, GT3s, it's creme de la creme at SRHI, or should I say SSRI, transition period at the moment. But yeah, the grid is absolutely packed this evening, and it's packed with talent. There's over 40 cars currently on the server, all just beginning qualifying now. They've got 20 minutes to set that best lap they can and get as far up that grid as possible. And I think that's going to be very, very important tonight, because we have got some very talented drivers, and I expect to see at least the top 20 probably all within, I would say within a second. I'm going to edge my bets and say the top 20 are going to be within, or as near as damn it, within a second of each other around here. And let's not forget, Laguna Seca is not the biggest of tracks, or not the longest of tracks, to have 42 cars or more circulating on it this evening, but it's going to be good.
Well, hello to everyone as well that's watching along in the streams, both on YouTube, Facebook and Twitch. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Hope you're having a good time, getting excited for the season ahead. And of course, it kicks off tonight, here and now. You're in the right place at the right time. And of course, if you do enjoy the racing that you see on screen tonight, please feel free to like the stream and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow on Twitch, like on Facebook, whatever it is for whatever platform you're on, and stay up to date with all the racing that's going on here at SSRI, as Steve mentions, transition period as two communities come together. And the first round of any season is exciting. New liveries, new tracks, new competition, but plenty of names in the entry list for this championship, as Steve alludes to there. Nearly 50 cars can be taken to the track across the course of the season, with almost every GT3 mark represented, so plenty of the racing spectrum on the track. And like I say, a delay, so the calendar's undergoing a bit of a reshuffle as a result of that cancellation, with the final round now set to take place on the 18th of January. So our post-summer champion won't be crowned until early 2022, but they won't mind. The title is what they're here for. And speaking of championships, Dark Sky Racing Sem Spenkelink was knocked from his GT3 throne last season by George Boothby. And this season, there looks to be plenty of drivers, though, that will be wanting to stop Spenkelink's reclamation of the title. Quick run-through of the race format. 20 minutes of qualifying will set the grid for a 60-minute race. It's flag to flag, so no requirement for a mandatory pit stop. So if anyone comes down pit lane, we must assume it's a problem and not strategy. And let's turn our eyes then to qualifying. It's a track that you can race at, isn't it, Steve Proudy? There are opportunities to overtake here, but with a circuit that maybe is quite narrow in places, obviously the lingering dust runoff to play with, getting that good qualifying position is very important here at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you drop a wheel off the track and into the dust, really sort of sap that forward momentum out of the car. You will lose tenths and you will lose positions on the grid. But also, I mean, as you can see here now, you know, we're following Chris Hill currently in ninth, but they're struggling to find their own space. You know, it's all too easy for some of these faster guys potentially to start tripping over guys that may only be, you know, a few tenths slower than them, but when they're running as close as they are now, as we just see someone getting very, very sideways through the corkscrew, they're doing very well to hold on to that. But yeah, it's difficult, and that's, I think, the biggest battle for these guys tonight in this qualifying session is going to be to find their own, stripping over the other cars. As we see one of the SimSport Racing Bentleys going back into the pits already, maybe to make some adjustments or something not quite right there. But Dave Jr., who's on screen now, he's looking to just pull out the way and let some cars go by. he is very much one of the contenders from last season. Big shout out to Alex Goldschmidt, who I commentated on the GT3s with last season, did an awesome job with us. But yeah, there's a few names there. There's Dave Jr., who's going to, he's one to watch. Got Banny currently down in 8th place there. He's another one that's good to watch. There's so many names, and it's like the GT4s, Tim. It's very, very difficult to start picking out the drivers that you think are going to be on that podium, because it will change from round to round. These guys are competitive. The cars suit different tracks. The drivers suit different tracks. We've just seen just on my other ones there, just caught my eye. Somebody just spun off. But yeah, it's going to be a good championship, this one. I think it's going to be wide open. I think there's some very talented drivers, as I've already said, out there, and I think the times are going to be close, and I think the racing's going to be even closer.
Well, Dave, very complimentary words from Steve Prouty, currently topping the timesheets at 1 minute 22.659. He's got 0.168 of a second over Rob in second place in the number 48 Aston Martin. And just a quick stat for you here, Steve. Like you say, not much room to go around at Laguna Seca. 2.238 miles, 3.6 kilometres long, and with 42 drivers on the grid, it's only 85 metres of track if they're all out there spread evenly. And if you think about, some of the braking zones are 100 metres long for certain corners, there's really not a lot of room to go around. But drivers are out on track at the moment. They are trying to find that space and get up to speed and start putting in some quick lap times. Here's Clyde Bainey crossing the line. He jumps up to 5th place. That's a 1 minute 23.079, so he's on the cusp. As he drops it onto the right hand side and into the sand there, he jumps up to 5th place. 0.420 of a second though off this provisional pole time from Dave Jr. in the number 10 Lamborghini. That lap time looks to be holding fairly strongly at the moment, and already Steve's prediction of the top 20 being separated by a second. The top 19 are separated by 1 second as it stands, so the grid is really compact, really close together, and it's just a taste of the action we have ahead of us this evening. 12.5 minutes to go. It is Junior who leads from Spence Robb. Chris Pinchbeck up to 3rd place in the number 443 Aston Martin. He's a third of a second away from top spot. Then it's Vickers, Barney, Planas in 6th, ahead of Garland, Cox, Wester and Simmers rounding out your top 10, and they're separated by 0.8 of a second. We go on board with Dennis Berkman from the Mode 11 racing team, heading up the hill through turn 6, then climbs up the Rahal straight towards the corkscrew, the iconic corner here at Laguna Seca. Brake hard over the crest and plunge down 3 stories worth of elevation change through the left and the right, and then try and carry the speed down the hill through this banked left-hander, get the car back over to the left, brake again through another corner that seems to have lots of positive camber, but get it wrong, find yourself spat off into the sand that lines the circuit here, and into the final corner at turn 11. Get the exit lined up perfectly, power down, flat to the line. Dennis Berkman across the timing line, and he improves. No, he doesn't improve on that lap, but stays 14th. Still some time to be found out there on track as we cut to Arenam in the number 55 Lamborghini. Team Rocket fast and furious, yet to set a time. Puts the time in now, jumps up to 7th place, a 1 minute 23.022. So this grid is coming together already now. The top 23 separated by the best part of a second. So the order is very close as Rich Smith puts the SimSport Racing Bentley onto 3rd place on the grid. So Steve, already look at these times. I mean, the top 6 are within 0.3 of a second, and like we said, top 20 plus drivers within a second around what is a fairly compact circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is close. I mean, Dave Jr. just at the top of the table at the moment, just by a clear 1/10. Rich Smith a further 2/10 back, and then it really does get close. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers all just within 2/10 of that pole time. Well, 6 drivers, including Rob in 2nd place. But it's so close, and I think it's going to get even closer because they are there are a few drivers finding a 10th here and there that are all in the top 20, so those times are going to come together even more. But yeah, the prediction of the top 20, I think that's out the window. I think maybe we should go for the top 30 being within a second of each other. But that just goes to show, you know, we're running 2 tiers this season because of the demand, and they had to do qualifying to decide which tier they're in. So these are guys that are all pretty much on a similar pace, and when you get this many cars on the similar pace, it's only going to go one way. It's going to be close, and it's going to be tight, and it's going to be a hard-fought battle. And whoever comes out, you know, with the race wins here and remains consistent throughout the season, it's going to be tough to win the championship, but they're going to have to be consistent. They're going to have to turn up every round. They're going to have to turn up with their A game, and they're going to, even in the bad races, they're going to have to push on to try and you know, get the points, score the points when they can, take whatever points they can get, because it's all going to count at the end of the season. I don't think anyone's going to run away with it this year.
Consistency is certainly key, but talk about making a mark on your first appearance. Kieran Vidago in the number 4 Ferrari strips Dave Jr. of that provisional pole. A 1 minute 22.563 from Vidago puts him top spot. Now the pole margin less than a 10th of a second. It is fractional stuff between the guys out there on track at the moment. It's seriously hotting up. Andreas Garlin on screen at the moment in the Mad Goetzer race.
4 tenths up to 4 tenths.
4 tenths up on his time, and with 7 tenths to pole, this could see him jump well inside the top 5 as he rounds the right hand of the penultimate corner and into the final turn at turn 11. Can he get the vantage stop? Yes, he gets it turned in nicely. Plants the throttle, doesn't use too much of the exit curve. It's going to look good for Garlin as he drifts across to the inside of the track, crosses the line, and from 14th to 4th, Andreas Garlin puts his Aston Martin on the second row of the grid. What a fantastic time from the driver of the 188. He's 2 tenths off Kieran Vidago's new pole margin, as we see Martin van der Kraan crosses the line and heads off to the side of the track after improving on that most recent attempt. 8 minutes to go here at Laguna Seca in this first qualifying session of the season. Klaas Vester on screen at the moment in the Team Rocket Fast and Furious number 90 Ferrari heads down the hill through the left and into the right again. He's improving on his time, slightly wide there from the apex, could cost him just hundredths, but that could separate you from 10th down to 15th at this rate. Out of the final corner, plants the throttle, drives up to the line, stays towards the middle of the track to shorten the distance. As he crosses the line, he stays in P15, so no improvement there. Nard Cox starts Sky Racing, 6 tenths up, so this could see him go to the top 5, and it does. Inside the top 3, Nard Cox puts himself on the second row and dumps Garlin to 5th place. So it's all change here in these final few minutes. Steve, is it going to be a case of the last man on track gets the better conditions, gets that more optimised track, or is it really in those final few seconds you just leave everything out there on the track?
Well, to be honest, mate, yeah, normally, you know, the longer you can leave it, the better. But with this many cars on this track, when it's not such a long lap time, I think the track is going to be as rubbered in as ever. But we're looking at Rich Smith now, who's 3 tenths up as well, and he's 3 tenths off that pole time. So it could be he might take Vidago off top spot, but very least get into second place. And he does. He knocks him off by a similar margin there. So it's as close as you like at the top, and it's getting even closer. Dave Jr. I'm going to cut to Dave Jr. in a second. He was 3 tenths up, but he's just lost some time. But it's looking like Garland's in a little bit of traffic, and that's unfortunate for him because he is currently showing us 4 tenths up on this lap now. As long as that car gets out of his way and lets him maintain his speed, and he does, but he has lost some time. He's only got a 10th in hand now. He had 4 tenths at one point, so that would have seen him easily on pole position. But as it stands now, he's lost that time, and he's going to be in for a similar to his best lap. He may get a slight improvement, and a slight improvement's all he needs to get up into that 5th place, but he has got the pace, judging by the sector times, to potentially get onto that front row, if not pole position.
So one of the CBSR Mercedes moving out the way in the middle sector, but it could have been enough to cost Garlin a shot at pole position as he comes out of the final corner, crosses the timing line. Is he going to improve? No, he doesn't. So he was unable to reclaim that lost time in the middle sector. He stays in 6th place. He's got those 4 tenths in the bag though. He knows that he can go out on track and find that time. He's now got to do the hardest thing and repeat that run through the first sector. Repeat finding that time, and maybe we might see the pole change in this, the final 5 minutes and change of qualifying. As we see Johan Planus on screen at the moment, Red Rocket Racing 81, the Ferrari, heading into the final corner at turn 11. Gets the car stopped nicely.
No, he's lost it.
Just runs a bit wide on the exit there. Had to almost check up to avoid going into the gravel. And as he crosses the line, he doesn't improve. And it was a matter of, well, less than a tenth of a second. So all lost in that final corner. As Pack Rosenberg heads up to the line in the 911 Porsche. Crosses the line, jumps up inside the top 10. So from outside the top 20 to 9th place. He's now 4 tenths off pole position. And in the final 5 minutes of the session has found time. So we've got a Porsche inside the top 10. It's SimSport Racing Bentley. Now from the Dark Sky Racing McLaren of Nard Cox, who's knocked Kieran Vidago from the front row. So it's SimSport, Dark Sky, SimSport. Then Dave Jr. in the number 10. Lamborghini is in P4. As we see, Garland goes at it again. He does improve this time. And look at that. 3 cars separated by less than a tenth of a second. This is incredible stuff. Actually, it's the whole, the first 2 rows are separated by less than a tenth. Garland sends one into the gravel almost in celebration from that time. He improves, and wow, he managed to find that time on track. But Steve, again, it's incredible. A matter of hundredths of a second separating the top 4 drivers.
Yeah, imagine. I mean, just imagine how frustrating this is for the guys. You know, I mean, you are talking less than visual amounts here. It is a matter of a timing beam that is just splitting these guys by, you know, fractions of a second. It is not visible. It's crazy. And you know, for Vidago to go from what was a respectable pole time down to 4th, albeit still on the second row, but sorry, down to 3rd, but on the second row. But you know, it's so tight, so close, and it's going to be difficult to overtake here. It does matter. Qualifying is important. You know, you want to get that clean start. You want to be on that front row at the very least to get away, because it's going to be difficult to start overtaking around here with so many cars, and mistakes, believe me, are going to be punished, because you are going to lose positions if you start going off the track and pushing too hard.
As you see Thomas Van Schaik pushing hard, dipping 2 wheels into the sand and losing time on his hot lap. Alexander Delore on screen in the 49 Lork driving Lexus, almost finding himself
just going to
caught
cut
up
across
in
you
the
there.
traffic.
Going to cut across you. Vidago was 2 tenths up, and he pushed, and I think that was a little bit of, he was frustrated there, because I think he was pushing and he was going to be on pole position. Obviously he's lost that time. He's got it in hand, but you saw him catch those 2 cars going into the final corner. Little bit of contact there, and that was his lap over. But yeah, I talked all over you there, because I saw on the timing screen Vidago was 2 tenths up as he approached that final corner. He'll be kicking himself, he'll be annoyed, he'll be trying to regroup. He's got 2 minutes on the clock. I would, you know, can you not just drop back, just create a little bit of space and then go again, you know, rather than chasing the car around like he is at the moment. He's out there, I'm not, maybe, you know, but I think that's what I'd be doing too.
Well, it looks like he's picked a target to follow, and it's a good one at that, because it appears to be Rich Smith's number 76 Bentley, which is our current pole sitter. But that could all change. As we said, traffic was going to be a problem in qualifying, and traffic was certainly a problem for SimSport Racing's Kieran Vidago as he arrived at the final corner. 2 cars preparing to start their hot laps, and he arrives on a quick one, improving, potentially grabbing pole position, has to back out of it, ends up making contact with the Lexus of Alexander Delore, sending him into the gravel. So look, it's hot stuff out there on track, and there's a fight for space as well as the fight for the grid positions, but he's going to gather himself up and go again. It now looks like Nard Cox has improved, so he's reclaimed pole position in the number 35 McLaren. A 1:22.458 sees him reclaim top spot, is now Smith and Vidago going to go again, but there's traffic up ahead. It's the McLaren, as we see Smith dives to the inside and Vidago almost tries to follow. It's the number 95 going round, and actually Rich Smith seems to bail out of that one and get fully out of the way.
Oh no,
Vidago though getting held up through turn 3. This could be the lap, and he's running out of time. He could just about get back round and start another lap, but 3 push laps from Vidago. He's surely going to be getting frustrated under there, Steve, as he's being held up by this McLaren.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He's going to have to keep pushing to get around to get another lap in, and he is well and truly boxed in. He's stuck. There is a pace differential, but the other guy's on a hot lap, and he's entitled to be there. And that's a little bit of feistiness from Vidago there, to say it kindly. And he's actually bailed out the lap there. Yeah, I think there's a bit of frustration sneaking into that cockpit, understandably so. Like we said right at the beginning of qualifying, you've got to find your place on track, and it's just unlucky. Count his blessings that at the moment he's on row 2, and I think he's looking, well, I was going to say he's looking relatively safe there, but he has just been pushed down to 4th place, so he's clinging on to row 2 at the moment. But he'll be frustrated because, as I say, on the timing screen it didn't lie. He was showing he had 2/10 in the bag there. As we see him, Pinchbeck on his final go around has just run wide, and he's going to abort that lap now.
So the timer elapses. No more time left in this qualifying session. If you're on a lap, you get to complete it, but that's it. Your last chance to improve your grid position. Nard Cox is still to pole, but yes, Arwen Nahm deciding to bail out on that lap with time in hand. So it looks like Cox, Smith and Junior will be our top 3 for this evening's race here at Laguna Seca. A mesmeric qualifying session. I'm sure we're going to be taking a few moments to catch our breath as the drivers line up on the grid, but we'll run you through the order quickly. It was indeed Nard Cox taking the first pole position of the season. A 1 minute 22.458 sees him claim top spot in the number 35 McLaren. Then it's Rich Smith in the 76 Simsport Racing Bentley. It was a matter of thousandths of a second behind the pole sitter. Then it was Junior and Vidago, the top 4, separated by 0.105 of a second. That makes up your second row. Then it's Garlin. Van der Krum improves to 6th place in the closing moments. Reef Spence Rob will be 7th, ahead of Vist, Wester and Nahm in 10th place, with Ijez Arif in 11th. Grobergen in 12th, ahead of Medema, Pinchbeck and Planus rounds out your top 15. And Steve, those top 15 separated by 0.456 of a second. And we talk about racing, we talk about particularly in spec series, when all the cars are the same make, the same power outputs, the same characteristics, that it's difficult to catch and pass someone unless you've got that that difference in terms of pace. But here everyone seems to be on a level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very close. It's very, very tight, and it's a big, big grid this evening. This, obviously they're going to go on the formation lap. They're going to line up 2 by 2 as they come round for that final corner, ready to take the green lights. And when they take those green lights, it's going to be also important to get that first corner right. Let's hope they don't start tripping up over each other with the time differentials so close that if they do make a mistake, if they do get pushed down the field, it's going to be incredibly hard to make that ground up to catch, because the lap times are so tight. There's nobody massively slower, there's nobody massively quicker. It's going to come down to being careful, trying to get around the first few laps, get into a rhythm, defend your position rather than attacking too much, and just go with where you are. Just try and be consistent, try and pick up positions as they present themselves. But let's not forget, like we said, there's no pit stop in this race, so there's no tactical decisions to be made. There's no undercuts to be made. It's just down to lights out to checkered flag, and it's just a straight race. So these guys are going to have to certainly look after the tyres a little bit around here as well, because believe you me, it's not too bad on track with a track temp of 34 degrees, but it's a very abrasive track. It's a difficult track, is Laguna Seca. It does eat the tyres up, and they are going to start to struggle towards the end of this race, I do think.
Well, with 60 minutes on the clock, there's no requirement to make a pit stop, so you're really going to be testing the tyres towards the end of the race. There are curbs that you want to hit, curbs that you don't, and like Steve says, quite an abrasive track surface. Looking at the current conditions, 26 degrees C ambient, track temperature 34, so it's hot, but it's not particularly warm, not over the top in terms of track heat, but it's certainly something that the drivers will have to consider as they go through this 60-minute race. It's 2 minutes past 3 p.m. local time, so no chance of the conditions changing as the sun sets, for example, as we come down towards the back end of the grid. And on the left-hand side there, an Aston Martin with a very colourful paint scheme. I believe that's Bas van Mellis, continuing the same theme from his Porsche in the GT4 category. We can see Chris Hill's cars as well, Aaron Pike as well there towards the back end of the grid, and these drivers will be hoping to get a clean start and potentially benefit from any drama that kicks off in front of them. But looking at the weather forecast as well, no chance of rain, so these conditions are looking to stay fairly consistent across the 60-minute race this evening. Nard Cox leads them away from the grid on this parade lap. Drivers will just be focusing on making sure they've got everything set up and ready to go, because once that green flag waves, you're locked in. You've got to get everything right before the start of the race, and then once the race begins and all hell breaks loose, you've got to be prepared to react as and when. On board with Chris Pinchbeck in number 443 SimSport Racing Aston Martin.
Cars still making their way away from the grid. That just gives you some idea of how big this field is tonight, Tim.
Well, I was looking at the track map, and Nard Cox is already on his way into turn 4 in the end of sector 1, and here at the back of the grid we're yet to make it into the first corner. So not only was traffic a problem in qualifying, we can almost certainly say that after a few minutes and a sizable percentage of this race, the front of the crocodile will certainly be catching the tail, and there will be blue flags and drivers will be having to move out of the way for the race leaders. And that's another problem, isn't it, Steve? Because dealing with traffic is something that drivers are going to have to get used to in this championship, with so many cars on the grid and with 60 minutes of racing. It's a skill in its own right, isn't it? Working out when to pass someone, how to pass them, crucially, when's the right time to back off and maybe try again another corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, you're going to have to defend your position as much as you are going to have to attack it. You're going to have to remember that there's no pit stops. You're going to have to be make those conscious decisions that when you make a move, it's going to have to be decisive. As we've said so many times, it's no good trying to be opportunistic in some degrees. You're going to have to be calculated. You're going to have to know that when you go for that move, it's going to work, because if it doesn't, it's going to cost you time, and then once you start costing time, there's always going to be someone just behind you waiting to pounce, and you can go very quickly from an attacking position to a defending position. So I think we're going to get some great racing now, as they are all starting to line up 2 by 2, ready to take the green lights.
Well, hello everyone who's watching along. If you've just joined us, what a perfect time to click on this stream and be ready to watch some racing. Hello Stefan Hoffman-Arvidsson, as well to Adam Isalovic, Gene Pinchbeck and Bolton Ladden Scouse, as well as Sem Racing watching on. They round the final corner here at Laguna Seca. They're going to line up 2 by 2 and come towards the start-finish line to take the green flag and kick off this GT3 Season 4 here at SSRI. Nard Cox will lead them away. We await the green flag and it waves. 60 minutes to go here at Laguna Seca. Cox gets a good start, but it looks like Vidago's made a lightning bolt. He's looking towards the middle to move up from P3. Goes around the outside of Dave Jr. into the first corner, but Cox defends the lead from Smith. Jr. actually now manages to get up the inside of the Bentley on the exit of turn 1. It looks like in the background Garland's round as well. There's a bit of a traffic jam as they all attempt to make their way through the Andretti hairpin for the first time. There's a McLaren being pinballed around the middle of the grid, and that's a real shame to see, the group being decimated so early on, but it's a likely symptom of such a large number of cars trying to make their way through such a tight hairpin on the opening lap of a 60-minute race. But Nard Cox has got the whole shot. He leads away at the moment from Junior, Smith, Vidago in tandem. This top 4 already beginning to break away from the Ferrari of Van der Kraan as they head up the hill, up the Rahal straight towards the corkscrew for the first time of asking, over the crest and into the left-right. Do they all make it through cleanly? It looks like they have done, so the group remains intact. And as they down the hill, round through the left-hander into the final section of the lap, Vesta Nam, Ijaz Arif and Medema round out your top 9. Then it's Chris Pinchbeck in 10th ahead of Planis Barney, Van Drunen, Scepter and De Knoit in 15th. So the top 15 all seem to be fairly intact, with some gaps beginning to form just as a result of opening lap drama. But it's a shame to see that, Steve, but sometimes it's just what to expect with so many drivers heading into a tight first corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all going for that perfect apex, aren't there? And there is only one real perfect line, and there's a couple of slight variations on it, but ultimately you're aiming for the same piece of tarmac. But one guy who seems to have lost out on the start, and that is Rich Smith, who had that pace in qualifying, but it looks almost like he's holding Vidago up. That won't be too much of a problem, because obviously they come from the same racing stable of SimSport Racing, so I don't think they'll be battling too hard. But they what the one thing they won't want to do is let those two guys of Cox Jr. get away up front, because speaking from last season's experience, Cox and Jr. Those guys know how to drive, they know how to be consistent, and if they get so much as a gap, they will be able to defend it, and it will be all down to Smith and Vidago to try and close it. But it has to be said, at the moment they are pulling away from them,
forming a slight gap. And indeed, if Vidago feels he's got the pace, he won't want to he goes in very deep into the corkscrew, nearly tapping the rear of Rich Smith's Bentley as they crest over the top of the hill into the left right at turn 7, 8 and 8A here, of course, the letters as well as numbers in the US. Heading down the hill then through turn 10 and into the final corner at turn 11. Vidago is a lot closer than he was at the start of the lap, so I get the feeling Vidago's got that body language. If I want to get past, I want to chase after the top two, but with only 2 laps completed, there's plenty of time for Rich Smith to show the speed of the SimSport Racing Bentley number 76, and we did see it in qualifying. As we cut down the order, we see a battle here between Reece Spence Rob in the number 48 Odyssey Racing Aston Martin. He's going side by side. I believe that could be Van Mellis, but it looks like a car slightly out of position as they head up towards the start-finish line, ready to start their third lap. Battles all the way through the order, but yes, a great indication, Steve, there of just how spread out the field is already.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, those little mistakes, and it costs you a lot of time. But there's going to be battles up and down the field as people try to regain positions, defend positions, whatever. I don't think anyone's going to really spread out. But what is going to happen very quickly is Cox and Jr. and maybe Smith and Vidago are going to start to catch up to the tail end of the field and start to have to deal with traffic as well, which is going to be very, very difficult. It has to be said.
Well, there is a car slightly out of position. It is the number 147, which is Chris Vickers' Team Abbey Racing's McLaren, lapping round just off the back of the field. He's gone through the final corner and is heading up to the start-finish line now. And as you can see on screen, the leading quartet are in that exact position. So they are already catching a car that was, I believe, affected by this opening lap drama at the Andretti hairpin. Vidago, though, is still tucked under the rear wing of his teammate Rich Smith in the SimSport Racing Bentley. They are 3rd and 4th on the road at the moment, and then behind we've got another dance pairing between Van der Kraan and Wester in 5th and 6th. 2 Ferraris locked together, just rounding out your top 6 positions. Then it's Nahm in the 55 Lamborghini, 3.1 seconds back. So it looks like this top 6 are already beginning to just separate themselves away from the rest of the field. And it's Jezerif in the number 3 Audi ahead of Pinchbeck and Planas rounding out your top 10. They're all fairly close together, but some gaps of 1.5, 1.6 seconds between those guys. So some margins starting to form in the field as everyone seems to settle down, find their rhythm, work out who they're battling on track. Now this pairing here of Smith and Vidago, they're close together, running at a fairly similar pace as you would expect with them being so close together. Starting to get the feeling though that they might already be letting Cox and Jr. escape up the road. 1.8 seconds is the gap now between the number 10 Lamborghini and the number 76 Bentley. As we cut to a replay here, this is one of the SimSport Aston Martins.
It's
there.
The Ferrari behind Tim, Ferrari behind.
Pinchbeck in behind the Audi, and as they go up the hill towards the left-hander at turn 6, the Ferrari going very deep there and dropping it in front of their teammate. Very close not to get collected there. That was a certainly heart-in-mouth moment for the second of the 2 yellow and blue Ferraris following on. Fortunate to avoid incident there. And that's the problem, isn't it, Steve? With the sand, it's very different to a runoff area where you might just find yourself sliding off into it. The sand can almost kind of catch you and spin you back the other way. It's a very difficult thing to judge as well if you're a car that's coming over one of these blind corners through a crest, etc., and finding a car having an instant on their own.
Yeah, absolutely, and that it highlights what I was saying about not making a mistake, because it's going to cost you dearly. That Ferrari, the number 36 Ferrari, qualified in round about P15, and he's now currently running in P27, so he's almost lost, he's almost doubled his deficit to the leader just by that one mistake, because there's so many cars running so close together, and obviously safe rejoins are paramount. You've got to wait to join safely, and you could be waiting a long time around here, and obviously cars coming past at racing speed are going to have that advantage. They're going to get past you. But we're seeing Vidago now right up behind Rich Smith, and he's really looking impatient now. He's looking to press the advantage, and I think he'll be looking to implement some shall we say sister team orders and try and get past that Bentley. I'm not sure Rich is having it at the minute. He's not really driving defensively, but he's certainly not making any room for Kieran to get through, so it looks like it's hold station at the moment, and keep going as you are.
We saw from qualifying, if Vidago wants to make a move, he often is very keen to open the door for himself. He'll be hassling the back of Rich Smith, and we see two battling Mercedes here. Danny de Swart in the number 57 CBSR Racing Mercedes heads Manuel Greif in the 789 car. They're together on track, battling away for what is P18. As we see contact further back, that's Sander Vale getting into the side of Anthony to Horst, I believe, and spitting to Horst out to the right hand side and into the sand. So another collision there at the Andretti hairpin, one of the prime overtaking opportunities on the lap. As we see, there's more drama up ahead, because it looks like one of the Ferraris is slow in the centre of the circuit, the drivers having to split round to the left and the right to avoid the slow car. I wonder if that's
the 36. Yeah, it is.
I was going to say, yes, it's a Medina. That was the car that was spun off a couple of laps ago on the run up the hill. And again, it looks like another instant for the number 36, leaves them stranded in the middle of the pack and tumbling down the order. And with no pit stops, with no strategy cards to be played to fight your way back through the order, you have to do it on pace. Gets past one of the Aston Martins there, being followed in hard though by Scepter in the number 32 CBSR BMW. Actually cuts across the corkscrew and drops it on the apex as he tries to rejoin into the wall on the right hand side, and it's gone from bad to more bad to worse for Mitso Vadima, as it looks like he ends up in the wall. We'll have to see if he gets going again and can rejoin safely. And Steve, it's beggars belief, but we're only 9 minutes into the season, and I feel like we've had a whole championship worth of racing already.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Action-packed is not the word.
Oh,
it certainly
there's the
is.
move. Sorry, Steve, there's the move. Rich Smith moves aside, allows Kieran Vidago through, lifts the gates on his teammates and says, go for it. If you think you can catch them, if you think you got the pace to win this race, prove it, Sonny Jim. Lets him go. Vidago now up to third, Smith down to fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to be pushing now, is Kieran, and let's hope there's no mistakes that come from that push. He's going to be really trying. To be interesting to see his lap times, but it's looking like Rob and Lenson here battling away over 27th position, and that's the beauty of this tight field, is they are battling for every single position on the track. There is no mercy shown. They are literally pushing for any points that they can score and any positions they can gain, and some nice clean overtaking going on and some real pressure being applied to the cars. Drivers doing really well to keep it on. The not been too many incidents so far. We're not looking at viewing too many replays, because most of the cars are staying in the right direction. Just seems to be that number 36 Ferrari that's having a few issues. As Vidago's off, Vidago's just gone off. You can just see on my other screen now. That is it. That was exactly what I was saying. Vidago's going to now push, and he'll push hard, and he's made a mistake. I didn't quite see. I will try and find a replay of that one to see if we can find out exactly what happened with Vidago there.
Heartbreak for Kieran Vidago. He drops down the order, having been released by his teammate to go and chase after the race leaders. An incident at turn 3 sees him rejoining well down the order here. He's amongst the Ferraris, the Ferrari number 253 of Van der Kram, I believe, and Arwen Nam's number 55 Lamborghini. So he's dropped right down the order to the outskirts of the top 10, and I wonder if he's got damage, because he's gone flying off at turn 6, through the sand, through the gravel, and he's made contact with the barrier there again. He's stopped as well and reverted back to pit lane. So that could be day done for Kieran Vidago. It looks so promising for the drive of the number 4 Sim Sport Racing Ferrari, but it all seems to have unravelled fairly quickly indeed. The top 3 now, Cox Jr. and Rich Smith, elevated back up to that P3 position. That will also see Wester move up to P4 now, although he is the best part of 2 seconds off the back of the Bentley. Vidago tumbling down the order here, sat in pit lane. Heartbreak for Kieran after he seemed to show so much pace in qualifying, and again in the opening stages of this race he looked to have the speed to chase after Coxon Jr., who at the moment have a near 4-second lead over Rich Smith. So a change in the order there. Cox Jr., Smith, Wester, Pinchbeck now up to the top 5 ahead of Ijezarif, Naam, Van der Kraam and Van Shaker battling here on screen for P8 and 9. Then it's Van Drunen in 10th, de Kooyt in 11th ahead of Abramhoser in the number 21 McLaren. They're all together on road in the camera shot at the moment. And then there's the green Bentley of Southwell, the number 170 car, all together this train heading up the hill through turns 5 and 6. Steve, heartbreak for Kieran Vidago, and also I sense potentially a little bit of frustration for Rich Smith, because you let your teammate go, you want them to go on and do the job, you sacrifice a bit of time that, like we say, tenths and thousandths of a second matter in this championship, and now he's got an even bigger mountain to climb from P3.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, you know, he had to do it. It was Kieran had the pace, but it's always a worry when someone has the pace like that they then go on and they push as hard as Kieran did, and he obviously made a mistake and he paid the price and he went off. He picked up damage, and pretty much that's the end of his race. But it's like we said right at the beginning, they've got to be consistent. They've got to score the points when they can. It's not all about winning every single race. Yes, we want to be on the podium. Yes, we want to win. As drivers, that's what we do. That's what we want to do. But Kieran, he was pushing. He obviously pushed too hard and he went off. And unfortunately, in this round, he's not going to score any points now. And gone from a healthy 3rd position.
Points do indeed make prizes, especially in a championship as close as this. Vidago's score from this evening will be 0. Could that come back to haunt him when the championship concludes in January 2022? We head on to a replay now, and this is the Vidago incident. So into the Andretti hairpin, Vidago the Ferrari, Rich Smith the Bentley, towards turn 3. Vidago using all of the curb on entry, and just a slide actually on turning. So in the first part of the corner, as he comes in from the outside curb to the apex curb, just seems to get a wiggle on, catches the slide, hits the sand, finds himself drifting out into the barrier and straight to the scene of the accident. That's going to be a really difficult one for Vidago to swallow tonight, because I get the feeling, Steve, that it wasn't a massive incident or mistake, just a slight slide on the way into the corner, catches it, finds himself spinning off the track.
Yeah, for sure, that's all it was. A little bit of you see 2 cars going off there. That's Simmers and Sepser, is it? I believe, just making a little bit of contact there. But yeah, he just, like we keep saying, just those little mistakes, and it's going to cost dearly. And like you say, at the end of this championship, he may well be, missing those. As we've seen, Sepser there's just gone off completely. I think it is there. The BMW was just completely sideways.
Spun to the inside. Sepser in the 32 CBSR Racing BMW into the gravel on the right hand side, gets the car going again. I wonder if he's got any front end damage now that he's having to carry the remaining 3/4 of the race. We've just headed up to the 45 minutes to go mark. Nard Cox leads the way from Dave Jr. 1.793 seconds is the margin, so Cox has managed to stretch out a bit of a lead for himself now, but the pair of them have a 5.7 advantage over Rich Smith. Then it's Wester in the number 90 Ferrari in 4th ahead of Chris Pinchbeck in the 443 Simsport Racing Aston Martin. Aaron Naam in 6th place ahead of Ijezarif in the number 3 Audi. Then it's Van Shaker in the 299 Aston Martin in 8th place ahead of Van der Kraam. Aaron Van Drunen rounds out your top 10. Here's Mike Abramhoser in the number 21 McLaren. He's being hurried on by de Kooyt in the 114 Bentley. Then it's Southwell in the 170 Bentley, and closing in all the time is Niebauer, Delors and Van der Mart, who are 3 seconds in total behind this pack. So this is the battle really from 10th place all the way down to 14th, 15th really involved to some extent in this, as Abramhoser looks to the outside of Van Drunen heading into the Andretti hairpin, has to cover off the inside of de Kooyt there in the 114 Bentley as they head through turn 3. Out onto this lap 12 of the race. Track conditions still optimum, no change there, and no real change in the temperature as well, so everything remains as consistent, but the track, the racing is anything but. It's very up and down. Drivers seem to be rising and falling through the field. There's a slight run wide there from the 114 Bentley, kicking up the sand, climbing up the hill into turn 6 and the run up the Rahal straight towards the corkscrew. difficult to follow cars through here. You need as much visibility as possible to pick out your braking zones and the apex. As we see there, Abramhosa hurrying through, but it looked like Van Drunen had run wide down the hill. Wonder if he's got any sort of track limits warning from that. You won't want to tally those up, because a penalty could cost you very dearly, and not just impact this race, but indeed the course of your championship run. The two Bentleys close together, so finish the end of the lap. Abramhosa makes a slight mistake on the exit of the corner, and all of this battling has allowed Liebauer and Delors to close up even more so. A gap that was nearly 2 seconds plus is now down to 1.27 of a second. So they all close up as they nearly go 3 wide through turn 1. Then they all seem to find their line on the exit of the corner. It's still McLaren, Bentley in this battle for 11th place in the order. I get the feeling there's going to be a pass soon, if not a mistake. As we cut down the order here, Patrick Treffers in the number 313 Nissan dives up the inside of a Lexus, which I believe is De Keyser's number 15. They're battling for 19th and 20th positions. Behind is Chris Hill, Reece Spence Robb and Danny De Swartz. Dive up the inside from Spence Robb on Chris Hill. Gets the job done at turn 4 and gains a position. He's up to 21st now in the order. Looking to kick on. He's past Chris Hill there. And his next target is De Keyser in that 15 Lexus. And then if he can get up to Treffers and can make a move there, and they've got a bit of a gap to bridge up to Planas in 18th position. It's nearly 10 seconds, the gap between this quartet and the next group of cars. It's already starting to see how the field is splintering off into these groups. Here is Johan Planas in the number 81 Red Rocket Racing Ferrari. He's battling with the other Abramhosa on track, the number 33 Aston Martin. Nelson Abramhosa, as they go up over the crest and then down towards the tricky braking zone at the Andretti hairpin. Ferrari closing up slightly mid-corner there, but it looks like Abramhosa was prioritising the exit of the turn, manages to plant the power nice and early and get the kick out of this first hairpin. So it looks like Reece Spence Robb now has got past De Keyser fairly easily. So he dispatched Chris Hill on that lap. Now he's got through past De Keyser. Now sets about a 10.799 second gap between him and Planas. Let's see if he can start chipping away at that as he crosses the first sector line and heads up the hill into the furthest part of the circuit, away from the start-finish line, up towards turn 6, under the bridge there and into the left-hander. Don't hit the sausage curb on the inside. De Keyser runs wide though anyway, and is about to lose the position to Chris Hill. Gets up the inside on the run up the Rahal straight and into the corkscrew. The Aston Martin succeeds in making the pass on the Lexus, gets the advantage stopped nicely. Chris Hill up a position now into P20, but De Keyser tries to fight back through the rainy curve. They're nearly side by side, but no, Hill holds on to P20 for now.
Just going to cut to a replay, Tim, of Treffers just losing some positions and a little bit of traction as he came out of the corkscrew. So he's obviously going up now, braking zone, all good, looking to get through the corkscrew, looks reasonably tidy through there, but just on the next corner now as he goes round this left-hander, you can just see the car break away at the back end. He collects it all up, but it's cost him time. He's had to stay off the throttle and run out wide, and that's just cost him, what, 3-4 positions?
Lucky to avoid just skating off even more so and making a collision with the barrier there. Patrick Treffers in the 313 Nissan dropping down the order. Now we saw how Reece Spence Robb made his way through this group. Patrick Treffers is going to be wanting to do much the same, and in fact he's got Dennis Workman for company as well now in the 444 Aston Martin. So Workman and Treffers, two drivers I'm familiar with from their GT4 competition, looking to get their way through the field as we jump up to P11. Here's Abramhosa in the number 21 McLaren, still locked on the back of Aaron Van Drunen's number 24 Mercedes. They're batting over the top to final position actually in the top 10. Here's Damien De Keyser. Yeah, look at the cars behind. The Aston Martin and Nissan have really closed up on the opening 2/3 of this lap. they're going to be trying to find a way past the Pulse Motorsport Lexus anytime soon.
Yeah, cut to De Keyser there because he came through the corkscrew absolutely sideways, which has cost him a lot of time and allowed those guys to close right up on him. But yeah, he was certainly struggling, and he was certainly trying there.
Up over the hill, across the start-finish line then. Treffers is trying to line up a pass on Berkman, as we see behind Andreas Garlin, who was facing the wrong way at turn 1, but well inside the top 10 in qualifying, gets the move done on the Jaguar there of Lenson in the number 31 car. So Garlin trying to recover from that first lap mistake or incident. Got to imagine that he dropped right down the order, so to see him already up to P25 shows incredible driving in this opening half of the race. Berkman to the outside of De Keyser as they head into the left-hander at turn 5 and up the hill. Berkman tries to get a cut back and get the run, but that leaves him exposed now to Treffers, who ducks and dives from the inside to the outside. They're nearly side by side on the run into turn 6, and Treffers has to gather that Nissan up once again to avoid running off into the sand and into the gravel, over the crest and into the corkscrews. They plunge down 3 stories worth of elevation change. It's still, the order resumes: Lexus, Aston Martin, Nissan. As we see these two Bentleys going at it. This is Southwell to Knoit with Niebauer as well, who's caught up to the back of them in the number 622 Mercedes. They're all together on track as they head through the Andretti hairpin to the right-hander at turn 3. The order remains the same as they go out through turn 4. One slight mistake from Southwell in the 170. Or the other Bentley indeed of De Knoit in the 114 could see Niebauer improve his position to keep on the grey stuff here at Laguna Seca. No track limits really to play with, no runoff areas to just use generously, no track conditions in terms of the AstroTurf or flatter curbs to enjoy. Really, you need to stay on the grey track surface for as much as possible of the lap, as we see Niebauer closes right up behind De Knoit in the braking zone into the corkscrew. So we cut forwards to this battle for P7 and 8. Van Schaik versus Jezerif in the number 3 Audi as they head into the final corner. Van Schaik looks to be getting a good exit there. He seems to line that one up, going slightly wider on the entry and cutting in and planting the throttle, squaring off turn 11 as they run up over the hill and down towards the Andretti hairpin. The order stays the same. The Audi just got enough grunt in a straight line to keep ahead of the Vantage. V10 power versus V8 power there over the start-finish line as they come into turn 3. Under the Cooper tyres bridge, Van Schaik's looking for a way past. As now this battle's really kicked off, it looks like Berkman's got his way through past De Keyser, and now Treffers is looking to do the same. And in the background there, the pink and black Aston Martin of Garlin looking to make amends for that opening lap incident, trying to find a way through, follow the bright green Nissan past the gold and blue Lexus as they head down to the Andretti hairpin. They all managed to get the car stopped and turned in nicely. Garlin sniffing though at a way past De Keyser as they go in towards turn 3. Really impressive driving, Steve, from Garlin, because look, he was a pinball in that opening corner incident. We saw him facing the wrong way, multiple contacts, I'm sure, as we see a Mercedes spun round to the right hand side there, tumbling down the order. Not too sure who that was. I don't think it was Niebauer, but I'm sure we'll work out who it was once the timing screens adjust. But for Garlin really to dust himself down after that first lap incident, to go, okay, 60 minutes of racing left to go, plenty of time to make my way through the order, to be up to P24 and ready to claim 23rd position. It's great heads-up driving from the 188 Aston Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been some fantastic driving throughout the field tonight, and it's the reason. One of the reasons I'm being very quiet at the moment is because it's very blooming difficult to try and keep up with everything that's going on the track and try and bring you all the pictures as quick as we can, and the replays as well. But yeah, it just means it's great racing, it's a great league, and some very, very close battles. Few incidents, few cars retired. I think we're down to below 40 cars left running now, which is always a shame. But you know, like you said at the beginning, Tim, it's inevitable. There's a little bit of contact with so many cars on the track. But yeah, people trying to fight their way back through. As we're looking at Garland at the moment, he's doing a good job. We know that he should be a lot higher up than the P23 he's at the moment, but I'm sure that's not where he's going to finish. He's got just over half this race left, but as he moves forward now, it's the gaps are there, and it's going to be harder to get those overtakes in, isn't it? It's going to be difficult to make those positions back now.
He's made the move on to Kaiser now, up to P23. As Patrick Treffers, his next target in the 313 Nissan, sets a personal best lap time on that previous tour. The 3.6 kilometre circuit here, Laguna Seca. Garland, though, looks to be the man on the move at the moment. This bright pink and black Aston Martin of Mad Götze Racing looks to be in control and not too badly hampered by the collisions on the opening lap. Down the hill through the rainy curve. The car looks nice and stable, actually. Not too many adjustments to the steering through the long left-hander, and as he comes through the right, again looking fairly controlled. So here's the instant that we saw the spun Mercedes coming into turn 4 here, turning into the right-hand side. It's the car number 5, just understeers wide, gets into the sand, and just spins to the inside wall as he attempts to rejoin the number 5. That's Vols in the dynamic kinetic racing by HRT car, just making what seems a fairly innocuous incident early on. And Steve, at any other track, running 4 wheels off the circuit might not get punished that much, but here at Laguna Seca, dip a wheel into the sand, around you go.
Yeah, well that's it. I mean, it's an abrasive track, but it's another car there that looks like Natafas Wild Things car off at the side. But you know, it's an abrasive track, but there's lots of dust and grit, and it gets dragged onto the track. And we've seen a few cars this evening understeering, and the penalty for that understeer is fully off the track. And as you said so many times tonight, Tim, you get into that sand, and it's very difficult to get back on the track in an orderly fashion. And if you do, you've got dirty tyres. We've seen cars, you know, come back on the track from one mistake and immediately make another, as we've just seen a couple of cars. I think they're just getting out of the way, but that's not going to do them any favours running as we're talking about running over the sand. They clearly run really wide and you know, a little bit excessive on the room given, but you know, all fair. It's their decision to make, but not something I would do. But yeah, it is punishing you, but we have seen a few cars understeer off the track, quite notably obviously Kieran Vidago very early on in the race.
It's all been on corner entry, hasn't it? We haven't seen too many cars getting slip and slidey on the exit. Obviously at the corkscrew it's a very different corner where that characteristic is induced by the nature of the elevation change, the way the camber of the track rises and falls from left to right. But we're seeing a lot of cars on the entry to corners now having that kind of instance, so it maybe is a pressure problem, a track surface problem, like you say, Steve. The dirt on the track, maybe picking up sand or dirt on the tyres on other parts of the lap, and then come into a left or a right hander and particularly struggle. This circuit here at Laguna, there are more left-handers than right-handers, so you find that your front right does a lot more work. So once you come into those corners, like turn 3 and turn 4, or potentially the penultimate corner at turn 10, you find yourself with that slightly balance in terms of pressure and temperatures, and you're having to lean on a tyre that maybe isn't in its optimum working condition, and a mistake can come in. As we see, Abranhoser looking to make his way past Van Drunen. He's been tucked under the rear wing of the number 24 Mercedes for seemingly the last 30 minutes and 10 seconds of the race, but as we see, Van Drunen runs wide. So just as we say that, Mike Abranhoser gets his wishes granted. The number 21 McLaren up into the top 10. Let's run you through the order with half the race gone and half the race to go. Nard Cox leads the way. He's got a second over Dave Jr.'s number 10 Lamborghini. It's then Rich Smith in the 76 Simsport Racing Bentley rounding out the podium. 12.2 seconds back from the Lamborghini of Dave Jr. It just shows you the pace that the leading duo have. Then it's Chris Pinchbeck in the 443 Aston Martin, ahead of Wester, Ijezarif van Schaik, Naam, Van der Kraan and Abranhoser on screen, rounding out your top 10. And it looks like now he's been released, Abranhoser is closing up to the back of the 253 Ferrari of Van der Kraan there in front. As you see, Wester actually heads to pit lane. And here's an instant, I think this is Naam, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes.
Up over the corkscrew, through the left and the right, down the hill then into the rainy curve, another slide potentially through, yeah, just understeering. So another corner. Oh, and actually he ends up getting spat out by the curb. It's a shortcut turn 10, and he's going to drop 2 positions here. That is one of the Audi, the number 3 of the SRHI, and I think Van Schaik in the Aston Martin going through as well. So, Steve, just as we say that drivers didn't seem to be making a mistake on corner exit, there comes one. But it looks again like another car just suffering from some sort of understeer on corner entry. It's about a car's width away from the apex, and it's almost uncontrollable from there on in. He was off the track.
Yeah, absolutely. They just seem to sort of snap back, don't they, the cars on the surface, and they end up one direction or the other, and it's not very often it's a good position to end up in. But I was just actually when I saw the yellow flags for that incident, I was actually just going to apologise to Gene Pinchbeck, who's watching her son Chris, because he's climbing through the order. Is Chris? I can't remember. He qualified around about 11th or 12th, didn't he? He was outside the top 10 for sure, and he's up to a solid 4th place. He's taken that 5th place away in the last couple of laps, and he's up to a solid 4th place now, and he's lapping faster, it has to be said, or he was lapping faster than Rich Smith. Just looking at the times from the last lap, and he was a couple of tenths slower than Rich, so it's there or thereabouts. But Rich is a good sort of 8, nearly 9 seconds away from him, so Chris has got a lot of work to do to catch Rich. But with the mistakes we've seen from the cars this evening, nothing's impossible. But Chris needs to just consolidate what he's doing, stay consistent, and be happy with 4th place. I think that's the important thing for tonight, is just get the first round out of the way. You're in the top 10, you're going to score some decent points. 4th place is great, just bring it home, and if you gain another position, great, but if not, be happy with the result you're getting tonight.
P14 to P4 for Chris Pinchbeck in this opening half of the race, so he's certainly made his moves through the field, and now he's got a gap to Rich Smith worth trying to chop down. I did notice, Steve, as you were talking, the Audi that we just cut to briefly, SRHI pitting from inside the top 5, so I'm not sure if that's a mistake. Not too sure about the rules this season, but no requirement to make a mandatory visit to pit lane. As you see, Joan Planas here in the 81 Red Rocket Racing Ferrari, challenging the back of the Aston Martin in front of Van der Mark, but as he runs wide through the left-hander at turn 6, costs himself that momentum and time to the back of the bright orange V8 Vantage as they head down the hill through the corkscrew and into the left-hander at the rainy curve, where we've seen a number of drivers understeer off into the sand and the gravel. Both cars spitting flames as they downshift into the banked right-hander at turn 10 and then into the final corner here at turn 11. Team's service is resumed as he closes up to the back of him. Abramhosa, though, after making his pass on Van Drunen, who slipped off into the sand, is now caught right back to Van der Kraan in the fight for 7th place. So Abramhosa is certainly making his presence felt inside the top 10. Actually looks to the inside into turn 4, sticks the nose of the McLaren 720S alongside the rear bumper of the Ferrari 488 GT3 of Van der Kraan. As they go up towards turn 5, Van der Kraan's managed to hold on to the position for now, but Abramhosa nearly gets the overlap on the exit of the corner, under the bridge and in towards turn 6. They're still in the same way as off goes Van der Kraan, off into the sand. He just understeered wide. No turning at all there, it seemed, as he made the apex. Abramhosa through, but that's also promoted Van Drunen Southwell as well inside the top 10. So it's been a change there. Let's see if we can rejoin and get back onto the racing surface safely. It looks like he's dropped down to P10. So 3 positions lost in one foul swoop there as Joan Planas cuts the inside of the corkscrew, a desperate attempt to find any sort of speed in his attempt to make the pass there on Van der Mark. It's going to cost him time though in that final sector. He's going to have to gather himself up and go all over again to make his way past the Aston Martin. As here we go, look at that gap, it's really opened up now, so let's see if he can push on and close down the margin. Looking at the times on track at the moment, the only driver really capable of matching Nard Cox is actually Chris Pinchbeck in P4, as the resurgent Garlin looks for a way past Chris Hill for P18, and on the exit of turn 11 looks like he's going to have the momentum and the drive. He's almost a nose ahead as they go across the start finish line, up over the crest. They turn left and plunge down the hill towards the Andretti hairpin. on the inside. Garland's got the job done. Chris Hill rather accepts his position there on the outside and doesn't attempt to fight back on the apex of the corner. So Garland continues his climb up the field. Now P18 from what we can only assume is well down the order following that lap 1 incident. The 188 Aston Martin well and truly on the move. As I was saying, the only driver that looks to be matching Cox, as we see actually Junior just set a 1:23.8 on that previous lap. So Junior in the number 10 Lamborghini responds. Pitchback as well lapping strongly. As further down the order, drivers seem to be in the high 24s, whereas the leading duo seem to be in the low 24s to high 23s. Actually, Thomas Van Schaik getting a 1:23.757 on that previous lap as the driver in 5th place. So plenty of these drivers have pace, just displaying it on track as and when they can, depending on whether they're getting caught up in a battle. Here is that Artworks team Lamborghini, Dave Jr. in the red and black car, green accents, heading down the hill through the rainy curve. Cars now look to be dealing with traffic, Steve, on track. Ronnie Desiree here, who pitted, fighting his way past Danny de Swart. They're side by side into the final corner. Already looks like, Steve, into the second half of the race, actually the final third, that our race leaders are going to have to be keeping their eyes peeled for the slower traffic.
Yeah, for sure. They don't want to be tripping up over anybody at this stage of the race. 22 minutes left to go, and you know they've been pretty much, dare I say it, they've been pretty much trouble free up at the front. Obviously, once we saw Vidago disappear, which was really unfortunate. It's all been Hull Station, and they've just been doing their laps. They've got a bit of a gap between each other, and those gaps really, you know, once Cox and Junior got away at the front, they never looked like being caught by Smith. The gap between Pinchbeck and Smith is now sort of levelled out, but I think some of that is down to traffic as well. I do think at the moment maybe Pinchbeck's got the lap times to maybe catch Smith, or to be faster than Smith, maybe not catch him because he's now 14 seconds, well he's got 10 seconds back, sorry. He's got a lot of work to do to try and catch in 20 minutes, but the lap times are up and down. I mean, Pinchbeck's been lapping in the 23s, his last lap was a 25.1, so I think, you know, the traffic are not causing problems, but they are slowing them down a little bit. They're having to go offline, they're having to you know, change the braking points, and it is costing them you know, a 10th here, a 10th there, and it all adds up to a second or so when they get to cross the finish line. So it's difficult now. They're going to be concentrating really hard, and it's great to see these big grids, but the drivers, it gives them that much more work to do, mental work to do, with just concentrating so hard on who they're catching and where they're going to pass them.
No resting at all, as we see the next car for our race leader Nard Cox to pass is Class Wester's number 90 Team Rocket the Furious Ferrari. So he's all the way up to what is P24. So considering that there's been a couple of dropouts, nearly half the grid have still been lapped by our race leader. Here in 15th place though, this battle continues on. Vandermark leads Joan Planas by, as you can see, a matter of metres on track. And another battle further down the field. Dan Lenson, in the Team Rocket Dan number 31 Jaguars. Great to see this car being used and taking part in the racing this evening. He's trying to latch on to the back of the Ferrari, which was Class Western. Like I say, that was the last car on the lead lap. In fact, Dan Lenson is yet to be lapped. That gold McLaren behind, that is our race leader Nard Cox. So he'll be having to move aside shortly. He's got a good opportunity to do it here on the start-finish straight. Understeers slightly wide out of the the final corner, sorry. And Cox gets alongside. And Lenson will be backing out as they rise up over the crest. Careful there, not dipping two wheels into the sand. Don't want to have an instant with the race leaders. And all this traffic, I was going to say, has allowed Dave Jr. to properly close in on the race lead. The top two are now right together on track, whereas the gap was nearly 2 seconds at points. And the headache gets even worse for Nard Cox, because in front he's got a battling trio of De Kaiser, I believe that's fighting in the Lexus, as well as Chris Hill and Patrick Travis is a lot further on. That's Dennis Berkman there, and Klaas Vester. They're all together. Cox gets through on Dennis Berkman, who seems to just back out of it, well in the knowledge that that's the race leader coming through. So now he's got to make his way past Vesta in that Ferrari, as he looks for a move onto Kaiser's Lexus as they rise up over the crest. Fantastic onboard shot showing just how the track drops away to Kaiser off to the left-hand side, having to be careful as he rejoins the racing line, backs up on the apex because he's towards the inside, has to brake slow and slow the Lexus down. As we see, Klaas Vesta actually just backs out of it, picture in picture, gets well out of the way. But all of this fighting has definitely brought Dave Jr. back into the mix as the gaggle of cars heads into the final corner that includes our two race leaders. But Cox has got clear of them, and now Dave Jr. one more car to dispatch. That's Damien de Kaiser, and once he's done, he can realign the crosshairs back on the rear end of that number 35 McLaren. But a difficult lap there for both drivers, Steve, but they both managed to just execute it about perfectly, just waiting for the opportunity to present itself. But that being said, good heads-up driving from the back markers there to get out of the way of the race leaders when they could.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was so difficult, and the onboard shot just really showed you know, as the race leader coming up behind those guys who were battling for position, battling hard. He just had to. There was nothing Cox could do really. He just had to wait, bide his time. Yes, Junior closed up on him, but it's better to have Junior closing up on him than have Cox try and throw it down the middle of them or something like that and get taken out and lose the race lead and potentially retire from the race. So he did exactly the right thing, but it was so hard, so difficult to pick his moment. But thankfully the back markers did just let him you know, do what he needed to do. As we just saw Workman there, it was just taking an alternative line through the corkscrew, and that's cost him quite a few positions, I believe. But there is a lot of traffic there, and I'm not quite sure if some of that's back markers, some of it's leaders, as it were, and some of it's battling for position, as you can see from the relatives on the screen. So it's all going on in the track. It's hard for us to keep up, and it must be very frantic for the drivers. But for front, Cox is now extending that lead back out again. He's put the hammer down. I think, you know, maybe before he was coasting, and I think he's got something in reserve. He's doing what he needs to do now, and he's got clear track. He's got away from some of those the back markers, as it were. And while Junior's still only a second back, he was only 6/10 back. So definitely Cox is extending that out, and he just goes to show on the last lap Cox was that little bit quicker than Junior in second place, I believe.
Well, we look like we've had a change inside the top five. Chris Pinchbeck, 443 Aston Martin, tumbling down the order. He's now in pit lane. Now, like we say, no mandatory stop required. This was emphasised to the drivers before the race began on the Discord server. I hope that that's not a tactical error from Pinchbeck. It seems that he's just continuing to plummet down the timing screens, and looking on my timing screen, I can't see him getting moving. So I do get the feeling that that's some sort of a technical error there for Chris Pinchbeck, as opposed to a human error, which is a shame to see. He's lapping so strongly as well, climbing from 14th to inside the top five, keeping the nose of the Aston Martin clean for the opening 2/3 of the race. It seems to have all come crumbling down here inside the final 17 minutes. The opening round of Sim Racing Hub International's GT3 Season 4 from Laguna Seca. We're into the final quarter of the race, 15 minutes to go, and the battle for the lead is the battle on screen. Nard Cox in the 35 McLaren has been leading the entirety of this race, led away from pole position, but now through the traffic, through the course of the race, has been caught by Dave Jr. in the number 10 Artworks team Lamborghini. They're coming together. The gap now 0.8 of a second. The duo have nearly 15 seconds over Rich Smith in third place. Here is Pinchbeck though. Is it going to be a similar error to Kieran Vidago? Almost on the way into turn 3, runs wide. But as we come into turn 4, towards the apex, and again just runs out wide onto the sand and spun across to the inside, nose first into the wall, and actually collides across the rest of the track into, I believe that's Van Schaik. So heartbreak for two Aston Martin drivers there. Pinchbeck almost a passenger in that situation. The sand sending him from left to right, and then pinballs off the inside wall into the path of the arriving yellow and blue Aston Martin of Van Schaik. So two drivers there caught up in one incident. heartbreaking stuff inside the final quarter of this race. Pinchbeck still in pit lane, so it looks like he's not returning to racing action. And like we said, taking points in the opening round is crucial to get your championship off onto the best start. And now you're going to have the feeling you're going to be fighting back for the rest of the season with something to prove. But this battle on screen for further down in the order, Jezerif in the red Audi leads Vesta and Hill. This is 18th, 19th and 20th on the road. They seem to have been locked together all day so far. Then it's Danny de Swart, who we saw made a mistake early on ahead of Dennis Berkman, who moments ago ran wide through the corkscrew. In front end of that 444 Mode 11 Racing Aston Martin, looking too happy indeed. Now, Mike Abramhoser, who we were saying was pushing for a position inside the top 10, has now leapfrogged his way up to P5, and in fact is challenging Arwin Nam in the number 55 Lamborghini for what is 4th place. So this has been a spectacular drive from the driver of the number 21, Steve, from 18th on the grid, looking like he could get inside the top 5 and potentially top 4 before this race is done.
Yeah, he's actually at the moment he's made 13 positions, which is really, really good. But that's not the best, believe it or not. At the moment, I'm looking at Michael Southwell, who's currently in 6th place. He's made up 22 positions to get to that 6th place. So that's fantastic driving from him. And just goes to show that if you can keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble, you can do it. There's a lot of drivers in double figures. When I say double figures, 17 positions gained, 15 positions gained, 20 positions gained. So there's a lot of drivers who've managed to keep it clean and stay out of trouble. As we just saw, and the other shot there, I saw somebody colliding. So I'm just going to try and find that incident if I can.
Well, it shows that keeping the nose clean is important, but also shows that qualifying isn't exactly everything in a grid as close as this. It's often about just getting the race result done, just keeping clean and driving well. See yourself fly up the order and into a stronger position. As this is your race lead, this is the battle for the opening victory of this GT3 season. Nard Cox in the gold-coloured McLaren 720S leads Dave Jr. in the Artworks team number 10 Lamborghini Huracan. They are together on track, and looking at the track map, they don't have too much traffic in front of them. There seems to be a couple of seconds or so to the next back marker, but besides that, it looks like they've got fairly clean air to have at it and fight into this final 10 minutes of the race. It's Patrick Treffers is the next car they'll have to deal with. As we see, Nard Cox runs slightly wide on the exit of the Andretti hairpin and kicks up the dust in the face of Dave Jr. as they come through turn 3 and towards turn 4. The Lamborghini looks fast, and on that previous lap, Jr. was 0.2 of a second faster than the race leader, so he's got a bit of a pace advantage at the moment, but catching is one thing, passing is another, as the old cliche goes. Around Laguna Seca, you've got to make your move and make it stick.
And I'm going to apologise now. This is Southwell, who we've just been bigging up for positions gained in the green car there that we can see. Just watch through this next couple of corners. Just a little bit of a coming together. First contact there, but more contact to come, and it doesn't end well.
Ooh, Southwell catches the slide as he spins towards the inside. I think he was going side by side with Danny de Swart there through the exit of the corkscrew, through the rainy curve and through the right hand and penultimate turn at turn 10. Tumbling down the order goes Mark Southwell in the 170 Bentley. Now finds himself outside the top 10. So after fighting through to a really strong position, it seems to have come unravelled there in the closing 10 minutes of the race. Commentator's curse, potentially side-to-side contact, more likely, as we see the battles on track. Alexander Delors driving, Lexus going side by side there with, I think, Reece Spence Robb in the 48 is looking to fight through the order up to 13. Reece Spence Robb early on was caught behind the battle involving Damien De Keyser, Chris Hill, Patrick Treffers as well, so it shows that plenty of time in these 60-minute races to fight your way through the order and maybe make amends for an opening lap mistake or a mistake in qualifying. because at the moment Reece Spence Robb is on course for a top 15 position after starting inside the top 7, so definitely an instant on the opening lap, forcing him down the order. Now here's the fight. Look at this, Steve. Abranhoser and Nahm up together on track. Abranhoser, though, he needs to carry that momentum that's seen him climb the order and get a move done on Nahm in this final 8.5 minutes.
Oh, he was late on the brakes there, Tim, wasn't he? That was big closing speed into the apex there. It just cost him a little bit of time as he had to stay out of the throttle a little bit longer than Nahm. But he's definitely pushing and he's definitely taking chances. He's really wanting that 4th place, and he's going to have to bring his A game because Nahm's no pushover and he's in 4th place for a reason. He's a great driver. Just dropping through the corkscrew there, so aggressive. It's looking like Abranhoser is really pushing that McLaren and just having to lift up the throttle there, just trying to avoid that understeer that we've seen cause so many problems tonight and stay on the tarmac, and that gap's just opened up ever so slightly. We're talking 4 tenths, but it does seem to be a lot better, a lot later on the brakes as Nahm, but just Nahm seems to be able to get that Lamborghini all hooked up on the exit, and he just manages to extend that gap by a tenth or so on the exit of the corners there. He's pulled it out to 7 tenths, in fact he's gained 3 tenths, but just watch Abranhoser now. He's going to close up on the brakes again, just try and keep it in tight, get that front end tucked in, get on the power. He's just losing a bit of traction there with the back end stepping out. He's trying hard, Abranhoser, isn't he, Tim? He's really pushing. He wants that 4th place.
I was going to say, you can just read the body language of the steering wheel and of the car. Abranhoser is hustling this number 21 McLaren 720S around the Laguna Seca circuit. That P4 is his target and he wants it bad. A couple of mistakes though, a little slide on the exit, the Andretti hairpin just costing him time, and maybe Nahm seeing that now is the time to respond and tries to set out on building a margin over the driver in 5th position. This on screen, centre screen, is the battle for the race lead. 38 laps completed, 6.5 minutes to go here at Laguna Seca. Nard Cox and Dave Jr. are glued together on track, and this battle will decide the winner of the opening round of the season. Cox has been holding the lead. He's led every single lap up until this point from pole position, but if Dave Jr. has anything to say about it, he'll be making a move in the closing stages and snatching this race win away from the McLaren driver. Up the hill, through the left-hander at turn 6, up the Rahal straight towards the corkscrew. Looks like the McLaren's just able to pull a gap in the opening sector and a half. 0.8 of a second now the margin, whereas it was down to 4 tenths. I wonder if through this final sector Junior's able to close up, whereas picture in picture we see up the inside Abranhoser nearly gets the pass done on Nahm, but Nahm swoops around the outside, closes the door, in fact slams it on the face of the McLaren driver and says, "You're not taking P4 from me just yet. You'll have to try again."
I'm sure it will as well. I mean, that move came from nowhere. He didn't really look close enough to be having a go. But as we've seen, Abranhoser is good on the brakes. The McLaren is good on the brakes. It's better than the Lamborghini. And he just really decided to lick the stamp and send it there. But he didn't get the job done. Nahm was ready for it. And as I said earlier, he's going to have to really bring his A game to get past Nahm. Nahm's going to do everything he can to defend. He's going to defend when he needs to. And he needs to right now because Abranhoser's as close as he's been. And he's just looking at putting that nose up the inside. But that is not the place to do it. But we're going to come into the final turn now, head on to the start-finish straight. Abranhoser needs to get a good exit here. He needs to tuck in behind that Lamborghini and really try and make a decisive move into turn 1. Not quite sure he's close enough, but never say never, because we know, as I keep saying, watch him in the braking zone. That gap's going to disappear to virtually nothing as he's going to tuck right in behind. He's not close enough to get a move, but he's keeping that pressure applied, and that's what he needs to do. He's running out of time, 4.5 minutes to go, but he's got the pressure on. Look how close he is. I don't think we've seen him much closer than this for the whole race.
He seemed to send one up the inside of turn 4 on the previous lap, but unfortunately not quite able to get the overlap in the braking zone this time. Abranhoser needs to find a way past Nahm if he is to claim this P4 position, and Nahm needs to keep his eyes on the road ahead. Don't get distracted by the driver behind. Eyes forward and keep your racing line, and you'll find yourself defending better than if you were to move offline, hold the inside of a corner. It's a fantastic rearward facing shot off the back of the number 55 Lamborghini Huracan. can see just how much the track falls away there through the corkscrew. 3 stories worth of elevation change as they thunder down through the rainy curve. The McLaren tucked in behind. They seem to run slightly different lines through this final sector of the Laguna Seca lap. As we see in the picture-in-picture, keeping you up to date with both these battles, as Dave Jr. is trying again to force an error from Nard Cox in this remaining 3.5 minutes. As up over the crest goes Nam and Abram-Hoser, and almost the man in no man's land has been Rich Smith in the 76 Simsport Bentley. He's still in P3 and holding on to that final position on the podium as 40 laps of the Laguna Seca circuit have been completed through turn 3. Once again, Abram-Hoser is close, but not close enough to get a move done. It seems like Nam's just able to do enough on corner exit to stop that McLaren coming flying up the inside into a braking zone. As picture-in-picture, Cox runs slightly wide on the exit of the final corner. It's not enough for Junior to get alongside, but it is enough just to cost him some momentum out of turn 11 and up over the crest in towards the Andretti hairpin. Junior looks to the inside, tried to send it late on the brakes, but Cox is wise to that, covers it off by going in even later, runs slightly deep and is able to V off the corner and get back to the racing line with no damage done. Cox holds on to the lead, Junior still in second place, but a slight showing there from Cox that he is liable to mistake as Nam runs wide on the exit of the rainy curve. Can he gather up the Lamborghini? It takes him all of 200 metres to get it done so, but into the right-hander he regains control. Abram-Hoser up to P4. Steve, we're starting to see these little errors creeping in these final couple of laps. Tyres pushed to the maximum, but more importantly, drivers pushing to the maximum here.
Yeah, Abram-Hoser, what a drive that was there from him. I mean, he has been putting the pressure on for the last sort of 2-3 laps. I mean, he's been putting pressure on for a lot longer than that, but he's been right up the back of Nam for the last 2-3 laps, closer than we've ever seen him. We said it, we called it. He was putting the pressure on. He was trying to make moves. He was showing his nose. He was making sure Nam was looking in that rearview mirror and taking his eyes away from the front, and that's just created that mistake. It created the opportunity, and Abram-Hoser's got through, and he's gained that position. He's up to 4th place, and Nam's dropped down to 5th, and Nam will be annoyed with himself. He'll be happy with the 5th position in this strength of field that we've got here, but after being in 4th place for so long, defending so well, it has to be said, for so long, he'll be a little bit frustrated to lose that position.
And as they cross the line to start what I believe will be the final lap of the race, Dave Jr. is running out of opportunity to snatch the race lead from Nard Cox in these last moments of the race. Through turn 4, they had about 1 minute and 20 seconds on the clock as they cross the start-finish line, so it's a matter of seconds deciding whether they get another lap here, but I believe this will be the final tour of the 3.6 kilometre Laguna Seca circuit. They head up the hill under the VP Racing Fuels bridge, through the left-hander at turn 5, over the crest, through the Rahal straight towards the corkscrew for what could be the final time. Dave Jr. not close enough to challenge. It's going to take a mistake from Nard Cox, something that has been few and far between across the 60 minutes of this race so far, as they head down the hill through the rainy curve and into the right-hander at turn 10. Cox hits the apex. All he needs to do now is not make the mistake at the final corner that so nearly allowed Dave Jr. through 2 laps ago. Out of the final corner, onto the start-finish straight. Nard Cox is going to collect the checkered flag and the race-winning trophy here at Laguna Seca to win round 1 of Sim Racing Hub International's GT3 Season 4. He leads by half a second from Dave Jr. at the line in the number 10 Artworks Lamborghini. Then this man on screen in the number 76 Simsport Racing Bentley, Rich Smith. It's been a lonely race since his teammate Kieran Vidago parted from the side of the track and in the wall, but he's going to cross the line to pick up a well-deserved podium in P3. Abram-Hoser, really the mover and shaker of the race, gaining multiple positions from outside the top 10, further down the order than that, but he's P4 as he crosses the line after making a move on Arwin Nam in the penultimate lap. The Lamborghini number 55 crosses the line then in P5. Then it's de Canoit in the 114 Bentley, another mover and shaker from this race, up to P6. He'll take the flag in that position ahead of Aaron van Drunen, who's just a matter of car lengths behind. Then it's Van der Kraan and Thomas Niebauer in P9. Nelson Abrenhoser in 10th. So we've got 2 Abrenhosers in the top 10. Ahead of Van der Maart. And looks like actually it's been a change. Rhys Spence-Rob has got the job done on Van der Maart on the final lap. So he will take 11th place as they cross the line. Then it should be Alexander Delors and Andre Garlin, who fought back from that opening lap to take P15 at the flag. Then the rest of the order, Patrick Treffers, Ijezeri, number 3 Audi, who we saw pit in the midpoint of the race, never really recovered from there on in. And then Chris Hill in 18th, Klaas Vester in 19th, ahead of Damien de Keyser, rounding out your top 20. And Steve, we can take a breath, we can take a little sit down and cool off for a second there. But what a spectacular opening round to this season. The battle for the race lead was fantastic, but all through the grid we had fights for every position and every point going.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, absolutely fantastic job from all the drivers there, but more importantly, mate, that was an absolutely awesome job from yourself. I mean, I was trying my best to help with commentary there, but the action was so frantic. My eyes were pretty much fixed to the broadcast cameras, trying to pick out those battles, trying to find the replays, trying to listen to what you were saying and keep up with the action on track. But you did a phenomenal job there, mate, and I'm sure you are ready for a drink this evening after that one.
I could do with one. And actually, this replay perfect just to show the incident at turn 1. It looked like Rhys Spence-Rob and Andreas Garlin got together on the apex of turn 2. It is at the Andretti hairpin, and as Rhys Spence-Rob spun Garlin to the left-hand side, formed somewhat of a roadblock. 2 Aston Martins facing the wrong way, and the rest of the field rather decimated by this opening lap incident. So that was the deciding point for those 2 drivers in the race. And Steve, I hope we get to have a word with the drivers post-race. They often do drop down for us to have a chat with them. But a quick comment on Nard Cox there, leading every lap of the race. I mean, I'm not sure we would have expected that, considering how close the top 4, 5, 6, heck, even the top 20 were in qualifying. But it just showed that come the race session, come these 60 minutes from flag to flag, Cox got the job done. He rose to the challenge, and especially when Dave Jr. started to, poke around in those final 15-20 minutes and try and force Cox into a mistake, he stayed clean and stayed true and held on to the race win.
Yeah, we said it at the beginning of the race, didn't we? We said they've got to literally try and just concentrate on getting into that first corner cleanly. Qualifying was important to get up to the front end of the grid when it was so tight, and he did what he needed to do. He fended off the overtake attempts in the early parts, and he got his head down and he got into a rhythm very, very quickly, which is very impressive when you're under pressure, to be able to drop into a rhythm that's as fast as the guys around you and potentially faster than some of the other guys. And they both the front guys managed to pull a gap on Rich Smith and Verdago in 4th. Verdago arguably had the pace on Rich Smith, but then when Rich released him, Verdago just made a mistake. I think he had the pace. I think he potentially could have been so much more for Kieran this evening, but unfortunately he made that mistake, and it cost him dearly, as we saw a few other drivers making those mistakes. But yeah, Nard Cox deserved that win tonight, and hats off to him. Hopefully we'll get a chat with him very, very soon. But yeah, great opening race. I think if that's what the season's got in store, I think we are in for an exciting season, and I don't think we'll have many races where it's a clear-cut sort of battle for the top 2 spots like it was there. I think we'll have more cars in the mix, and I think we'll have different people on the podiums as well.
Obviously you get, with different circuits, different characteristics of the tracks, different cars will suit those circuits more so. I mean, you just take a snapshot of the race we had this evening, you would say that a car like a McLaren or a Lamborghini was a good one to have. Obviously we had the race winning McLaren of Nard Cox, but we also had Mike Abrenhoser climbing through the field in the number 21 McLaren 720S. So it looks like those 2 cars are faster to have. We also had 2 Lamborghinis inside the top 5, 2 Bentleys inside the top 6. So get a feeling that the Laguna Seca circuit maybe favoured those cars, but moving on down the season, different tracks, different track characteristics, it might favour different machinery. So we could see this order change. And with such fine margins between the drivers, if one track maybe leans towards your car's performance characteristics or its style, how it needs to be driven, or your particular setup, you could see the order shuffle around severely race by race, which is not unpredictable. Doesn't make things unpredictable, but makes things very much exciting. It's not quite a lottery, but it's close to it. It's all about getting the race done and driving well, and that can see you right up there in the order, like from Mike Abramhoser here on screen at the moment in the 21 McLaren, climbing his way through the field with a spectacular drive in this opening round. And Steve, another thing that comes with this first race, obviously it's good to, you know, have a strong first outing, get back up to speed with the cars, with the competition. But in terms of the championship, the real heartbreaking thing is getting the checkered flag in the final round and looking back to round one saying, what if I'd done this differently? Should I have done this differently? There'll be drivers tonight who will be on either side of that fence, won't there? There'll be Kieran Vidaga and Chris Pinchbeck missing out on some very strong points, but there'll also be the likes of Rich Smith, Mike Abramhoser, Arvin Naam, happy to come home inside the top 5 with some good points to their name.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I'm just looking at positions gained, and we've got about 5 or 6 drivers, as far as I can see, they've gained around about 19 positions tonight. So that's a lot of positions to gain in a race. But I almost understand why some of them, you know, they maybe pull the pin and retire after a big incident. I mean, that incident of Pinchbeck's was massive. Obviously, the spin and the initial contact with the wall wasn't an awful lot, but he bounced back off that wall and got collected by that other car very, very hard, and he would have had some significant damage there. So I know he escaped back to the pits, because I saw that on my replay, which would have put him a lap back. Then he would have had to sit there with the controls locked while they repaired the car. And with a field like this, then to try and come back out and start to unlap yourself potentially and fighting through, it's like, yeah, you're not in a point scoring position, and you haven't got much chance to get into a point scoring position with only, well, less than 20 minutes left of the race, I believe, at that time. So, you know, on those occasions, you can understand why some people have decided not to finish the race. But yeah, you're quite right. At the end of the season, if it comes down to a few points that's stopping you from potentially getting into that position ahead, or potentially winning the championship, and you didn't finish any round throughout this season for whatever reason, you are going to kick yourself, because as I said at the beginning, it's going to come down to the most consistent drivers. There's nobody out there, I don't think, in my humble opinion, that has got the out and out pace to win every single round and to walk away with this championship. It's going to come down to picking up the points at each and every round you enter. Doesn't matter whether it's a first, second, third, fourth place, whatever it is, just scoring the maximum points you can get in that round, and that's what it's going to come down to.
Like you say, it's more often than not that the races where you don't score points are the ones that are crucial towards your championship, as opposed to race wins, etc. It's all about getting points on the board, and plenty of drivers have done that this evening. Well, let's wrap things up there. Thank you very much to everyone who's been watching from YouTube, Twitch or Facebook. I can see the chats have been flying in, everyone enjoying the action. Thank you very much for stopping by and lending us your evening. If you did enjoy the racing action tonight, please feel free to like the stream on whatever platform you're on, or drop a follow or a subscribe to stay up to date with all the racing action going on here at Sim Racing Hub International, which will be, of course, merging with Sim Sport Racing in the intervening period to become Sim Sport Racing International, SSRI. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you to Steve Proudly for guiding me through the action with the cameras, etc. I've been Tim Fulbrick, and this opening round at Laguna Seca proves that in this GT3 Championship, quite simply, anything can happen. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time, same place. Good night.